Record. Okay. Who do we have here today? Miss Kara Winger here on the FORTIUS podcast, Titans of Throws. Three-time Olympian or four? Three?
Three so far.
Three so far. Yep. And Purdue alum.
Correct. Spoiler up.
Washingtonian.
Yep. Vancouver, Washington, Southwest Washington. I'm from everywhere, though. We can talk
You
about
are from
that.
everywhere.
Yeah.
People will say that about me too, and they're just like, "Where the hell are you from?" I'm like, It's like, duh, don't you remember? Even though I've lived in like 8 different places.
Right.
Okay, so thank you for being here. Before we kind of start, I want to hit you with like 5 questions. My 40 is 5.
Okay.
I just
I
started
love an
doing it.
alliteration. Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah. I'm trying to keep that up. So, what's your favorite event in the entire Olympic program outside of javelin?
Entire Olympics, track and field or no?
Anything like gymnastics or swimming or badminton.
Weightlifting. Olympic weightlifting.
Olympic weightlifting is awesome. Okay. The last book you read or your favorite one?
Favorite, the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society. It's historical fiction about German occupation of British Channel Islands during World War II, after World War II. And currently I'm reading Range by David Epstein for my 2-person book club.
Your 2-person book club. Who's the other person?
Ariana Ince.
Yeah, shout out to Ariana. We'll have to get her on here, man. It might just be like awkward silences and stares and lots of laughter. We probably won't say anything.
Between me and her? No, she's
No,
the
between
best.
her and I. But like, if it was, it was the 3 of us too, for sure.
She's a very good podcaster. Yep.
Avengers or Justice League?
No idea.
No idea. None
I
whatsoever.
don't know. No, I don't know.
Okay, we can skip. That's a passer. And favorite country out of your travels? You've probably competed on all but one continent by this point.
Right. We need to get an Antarctic competition happening.
If
so
only
that we
just
can
for
get
the day. Yeah.
7 out of 7 for sure. I'd be willing to go on a cruise to accomplish that with like all of throwers. It'd be so
I've
fun.
looked into it. Seriously, yeah.
It's so expensive. We need a sponsor for sure. Favorite continent. Russ and I competed together in Australia in 2012. He was there for like 5 weeks and I was only there for 2, but it was fabulous. And then I got to go back in 2017 for the Nitro meet that Usain Bolt helped put on. Yeah, it was super fun. So I love Australia. And I got to meet like my 3rd cousin in Melbourne, like at the Nitro meet. And she's just been really fun, like to stay connected with. So.
Oh, nice.
Multifaceted.
Yeah. So, and finally, living or dead, who would you want to like sit down with, like for a beer or coffee or whatever?
My grandma.
Yeah.
Yeah. She died in 2011. And yeah, she was just the best. She was the best. I miss her. Yeah.
Okay. We can leave that there. So, yes, again, thank you for being here. And for this podcast, I kind of want to know like a little bit about you. You can talk about sport. I'm not gonna like stop you from speaking about anything, but like my idea is more about kind of what makes you tick. So, like with that being said, like let's start with kind of like how did you fall into javelin? Like did you do other events in track and field? Were you other sports like volleyball or something like that?
Yeah, I grew up with an older brother and he didn't necessarily play the sports, but the few that he did, I was like, I definitely want to hang out with that guy. He's my favorite person in the world. So like t-ball as a really little kid because I was on his team. And we like played outside a lot. We made up a lot of weird games and played with neighbors and we're just like active all the time. And that's kind of how my family is. But we also moved a lot. So I referenced that a little bit. I was like born in Seattle, but then we lived in like San Diego for a while, back to like a Seattle suburb. Hawaii for 3 years. That was really like the first place that I remember
Oh,
living
I
as
didn't
a
know
little kid. Yeah, I mean, for good reason, but I was like 7 to 10. So those were like the years that I was like, oh, I am a human being and I'm autonomous and like I can, make my own decisions and stuff.
that's where Brooklyn is
Um,
right now.
oh, oh no.
So that's fun.
um, right. And I was playing sports kind of before that, like started really young, but like didn't actually focus on it kind of until Hawaii because I was the new kid once again. And that was like kind of the first time in my life that I needed to like figure out how to make friends. Like I was just old enough to like need some common ground or whatever. So that continued like when we moved back to Southwest Washington. And then I went to like a different high school or a different middle school than like the district for my elementary school. And then I was like supposed to go to a different high school. But yeah, it just felt like there were still these like breaks in my like friendships that I needed to bridge with sport kind of. So that was kind of how that all happened. And I was fairly shy growing up. So it helped that I was like decently athletic and could, maybe impress people, but maybe just like, I don't know, show people that I had some kind of value through movement and sports.
Yeah. Okay. Um, yeah, I can get down with that because I was pretty shy too, and like only child. Personally, you had a brother, but realizing that, yeah, man, like you can do stuff with your body and like whatever. I actually wasn't like really good at anything at like
Well,
a
same.
really young
And
age, right? And then it
yeah,
kind of happened, but like, um,
but I think if
funny
that's
'cause-
like your only outlet, then you reach a certain point that you're like, well, this is what I want to be good at because I've seen like little glimpses of greatness. And so I say all the time, like, I wasn't great in other sports. I just like wanted to be a good athlete so badly that I like tried harder than everybody else. And
yeah, okay.
yeah, that was like the place that I felt like I could be maybe most like free in that effort because I tried hard in school too, but like that's labeled a little bit differently when you're growing up, So
Yeah.
effort on the field of play is like more acceptable than academic effort.
Is that like a pressure that you kind of felt, or did you find yourself like falling into it essentially?
I think falling into it, and Russ and I have talked about this a little bit. My husband, he like, because a lot of athletes like sometimes have that kind of X factor motivation that comes from maybe something traumatic,
Yeah.
maybe. Like those are really powerful stories, and I don't have that. Like I'm from an upper middle class white family, like in that we were fine, and I didn't have any traumatic things happen to me as a kid. But Russ will say to me like, "Who hurt you? Like why do you try so hard?" And I'm like, I don't know. Like I've always loved like getting better for the sake of getting better, and trying too hard at stuff, and I don't really know what the deal with that is.
What I
But
think is
go ahead.
what I think is interesting, more like just kind of things that I'm getting into lately, and also the wife, and whatever. And I think like when we try to label, so when we're talking about traumatic experiences, like when we label things like that, I think we typically think of like abuse, or like something like super physical or emotional, right? And technically, I guess like what the experts on this sort of thing are trying to say now, at least how I interpret it, is like it doesn't necessarily have to be that. Like it's seriously, it could be anything, and it's usually something like really really small. So basically what I'm getting at is like one of the people that I am reading a lot of lately, like her thing is to say like no child gets out of childhood like without some trauma.
Yeah.
And it's like, seriously, like because like part when I start getting into this stuff, and it's like, yeah, I mean, I had a fine childhood, and like yeah, my parents are divorced, but like how many parents are in that kind of situation, right? But like ultimately I had a very loving kind of group, especially in light of my parents being divorced, right? I feel like people were trying to pick up slack and everything. If anything, I was coddled, right? And
Yeah, your village only grew. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And so that statement has really stuck with me the last however many months, like no one gets out. And so, and it's really interesting, and it's probably because like our minds at that age are really pliable, and like the littlest thing that, you know, otherwise it wouldn't even have to be malicious at all, and it like changed the course of someone's entire life. It's really
Yeah.
strange and scary
Well,
and
and
awesome.
maybe the moving is like my trauma, right? But and like needing to make friends, and then it's so interesting to me to like get back to your original question, how did you find the javelin? That like I was probably searching for some kind of acceptance like through all of those sports, and then I just happened to be the best and love the most the sport that like doesn't gain me any like attention or acceptance like in the wide world. Because it's javelin, because it's throws, because it's like little tiny track and field niche sport. But yeah, I totally see that, because I had like I didn't get invited to birthday parties, and then everyone was talking about it the next day, like kind of thing, and I like needed to be accepted through this like physical outlet of sport.
Yeah.
But then here we are with javelin. So
Yeah. Yeah, I can relate to that. So was there, so of all the sports that you did, like is there one that you know kind of loved or whatever, and then you know, and then you just happened to be better at javelin, at least on an international level? Like for
yeah,
myself, like I love football, played football, but like hammer, once it kind of took hold, it was clear that like, yeah, this is the way I should probably stop
yeah,
bashing
for
my
sure. And I think your football career lasted a little bit longer than my basketball career, but that was what I thought I was best at. And really, it was like I mentioned, I kind of outworked people, and I wasn't the best skills wise. I just loved like working together with people and like seeing a common outcome. But that got harder as like women got older, girls got older, and didn't work together as well. But my high school sports were swimming in the fall, basketball, that I thought I was going to go to college for, like maybe D2 something. And then my freshman year, I had played softball all my life before 8th grade and tried track in 8th grade. Didn't love anything I tried. Like I did a little bit of discus, but I mostly was like a middle distance runner, and I dabbled in high jump like a crazy person. And I don't have like good hops. Like I remember my basketball coach, my freshman year, I told him that I had high jumped the year before, and he laughed at me. Like he laughed out loud at that idea. But freshman year, I didn't know what sport I wanted to go out for in the spring, and I was late to the spring season because I had gotten to go to state with the varsity basketball team. My high school was really young. Like I wasn't amazing. I was just in the right place at the right time.
right.
And yeah, so I maybe thought about not playing a sport. And then my geometry teacher suggested javelin because he was the head coach of the track team. And I tried it and I loved it. And I'm 19 years later still throwing the javelin. So like swimming taught me individual success, but like with people that are like-minded doing kind of the same thing right next to you. Basketball was still fun and like a different fitness than swimming, but I was getting frustrated with results. And then javelin and track and field in general were like a marriage of the two of them: individual success with people around you, but like more, I don't know, on land, not in the water.
Yeah, I got you. It's kind of funny that I loved it from the very start, which I guess like I get that too, because having experimented with all the throws, I think I loved all of them from the start. Sorry, I loved shot, disc, and jav from like first start. Hated hammer. Hate.
And I didn't even know that you had tried javelin. I heard you say that on a different podcast, and I was like, "What? We need to."
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, because so I don't know. Not at Georgia, at Moore Park, we kind of like trained it a little bit, right? Because there's JC there, and you know, and the more points that you can score, you know, the better. So I did kind of mess, but I also like hurt my elbow because I was trying to show out, I think. But anyway,
Right. Yeah.
On my all-time best throw, which was like 56 meters.
That's respectable. It's fine.
56 meters. How old was I then? I don't know. I was 19 or 20 maybe. Yeah, Yeah. So that's interesting to me, that loving it like right from the start. So your first year, how old were you?
I turned 15 on the day of my first competition,
Yeah.
2001. Yep.
How'd that go? You probably remember it.
Yeah, I don't remember. Like, I did love it. And I think it was mostly like having something new, like something that wasn't any pressure. Like, it's strange now, 20 years later, to say that, like, oh, this was so new. And it's like the looking for something and it's the last place you look, like trying
Yeah.
all these sports and it's the last sport you try. Cause I played volleyball, I played soccer, I played, like I was goalie at a soccer tournament for a premier team that I hadn't made during tryouts, but they like picked me up for the postseason and I got scored on and everyone hated me and that was a terrible experience. So I like tried all of these different things. And I think the love for me was like I was doing something new with my friends. Like I just had people to hang out with at practice every day. And it was like something that I could apply my own internal pressure to, like if I wanted to. Like it felt like my choice to get better at it or not, because it was this like brand new weird thing that I'd never heard about before. It wasn't like stereotypical basketball. Didn't have the tradition of like district champions that there was on my swim team. Like I just like, it was all mine. And that's what I loved about it, like the freedom to get as good as I wanted to.
Yeah,
So
it's really
that first,
open-ended. That's
yeah.
a good way to put it, I think. Yeah, for sure.
And like it remains that way to this day. Like during coronavirus, like I'm loving proving to myself that it is about the process and about like loving the journey of it. Like I'm throwing far for me and trying to throw far for me and doing new things to try and throw even further for me, even without like the competitions looming. So
Right. So,
I realized.
I mean, I could assume, but I have no idea. But was there a point in your career, right? Because you're older than most of your competitors, which is fine, and and
As you know, yeah.
yeah, right. Um, was there a point where that changed, right? So like, were you competing again because of external factors? You're trying to prove something to someone else or whatever, and now you're realizing the power of process and internal, that kind of thing.
I think the only times that I've really struggled with motivation are when I haven't had input on what I'm doing and felt like I was depending on somebody that didn't believe as much in my process as I did. So, like 2017, well, 2011 and 2017 are my like really difficult years. And I know that like most throwers describe like the perfect technique as like a surprise, like you're maybe you have two really solid cues in your mind, but like you've done them enough and you've been locked into them and practiced enough
Mm-hmm.
for them to happen really naturally. And I rely kind of on that feeling like of surprise from day one. Like that first competition I ever had on my 15th birthday, like I do not remember what I was working on technique wise and all that stuff. I don't even remember like what it felt like to throw. I just remember feeling good about it, like watching the implement fly and then being surrounded by people that loved me. Like my parents were there, teammates, whatever. So in 2011, and this is fun to talk to you about, I had a really good 2010. And then my former coach tried a Bondarchuk method of training for us.
I'm quotation fingering that because
For sure.
it wasn't
For
at
sure.
all.
I
That's
know. And it was weird for me because I was only 24, 23, 24, 25. And it had gone so well the year before, but I wasn't like wise enough to know that we should just do that again, or like do that but expand upon it a little bit.
Or yeah, or at least stay within the, I don't know, infrastructure, I guess.
Right. And so I was just like, sure, like you've gotten me to this point, so why wouldn't I trust you completely? So it wasn't only a complete change of how the training was going, but I also did a lot of body composition changes, Like I was much leaner and lighter in 2011 and 12 than I had been in 2010. And I just like trusted that former coach like knew best. And I threw like 54 meters at every Diamond League that I went to in 2011. Like I happened to get the Olympic standard for 2012, but the rest of the season was just me like crying in the depths of stadiums like that whole year. And it was just that I didn't understand what I was doing, and I didn't have the confidence to like speak up and say like, I don't feel good. I'm so frustrated. Like I'll just keep suffering in silence by myself, because I was like too young and didn't have enough international experience to like be confident in that. And then 2017 was kind of a similar story. Like I wasn't getting like workouts on time, but again, I'd like been through enough injuries with this same person to feel like I needed to just trust the process. And by kind of the middle of the season, when it wasn't going well at all, even though it had started well, I just kind of went the opposite way and was like, well, I'm done. I'm just going to work with the people that I know are on my side, and then I have to figure something else out at the end. But it was really difficult to like push through that season, kind of with that decision sort of looming, and still just kind of feeling like I was missing something in a world championships year. So those are my most struggly times.
Interesting. So I mean, we haven't talked like in depth really about 2011, but I mean, so okay,
About the
so what was
Bonderchuk
it?
stuff.
Yeah, well, all right, well, let's just get that. So he was in our suite once at Worlds, and the topic came up. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, cool. Like, and at that time, well, honestly, still to this day, I'm completely open about it. You want to talk about it? Let's talk about it. I think it's fantastic. I have my own opinions about it based on being in it, living through it, and also doing everything else, right? Mm-hmm. So I think there's an interesting perspective there. Also, that being said, I'm by no means like you should do this or you have to do this, right? So, and that's more of a PSA. And and so we're having this conversation like in our suite. I forget who else was there, a couple other people. And he's asking me questions, but they're really loaded. It's like, and he's like making a statement and then being like, so it's like this, right? I'm like, no. And actually my tone wasn't quite like that the first time, and it probably wasn't like that the second time, but like there were like 4 or 5, 6 questions in a row, and each one I was like, no, like that's not what's supposed to be happening, man. Like, so I'm sorry I had to go through that.
Well, thanks. And me too. And it was a good learning experience, but
so I mean, so let's talk about like what came out of that, right? So I mean, I suppose what kind of belief in self you didn't change coaches after that year, did you, or did you?
After 2017, yeah. So Dana became my coach that fall, and then she's been my coach ever since. But Dana Lyon, U.S. Air Force Academy. But one of the biggest benefits to like, the first 8 years of my professional career was really developing my relationship with Jamie Myers, because he's been my strength coach since 2009. Like Russ and I moved to Chula Vista, to that Olympic Training Center that fall after I graduated from Purdue, and then Jamie got there really soon after that. So like all of us kind of got there at the same time. And he very quickly, I think I had a different strength program for maybe the first block, but then really quickly he became my strength coach. And all of the times that I really struggled, even when I tore my ACL in 2012, I got to throw the first pitch at a Padres game because I made the team anyway. And I had this catastrophic injury. I hadn't told anybody about it. I'd like just gotten it diagnosed, but I was like expected to throw a baseball off of a pitcher's mound,
oh boy.
Right-handed. And Jamie and his wife Maggie, who was my matron of honor, they lived in my same apartment complex. So like Jamie even like caught a baseball for me in the park, like so I could practice throwing the first pitch, like after this injury. And they were like the first people I went and spent time with after I got my MRI results. Like I remember we watched a comedy special, but I was just like crying on their couch with my friend Maggie because I was so devastated. But like that's how intertwined like he has become in just all of the kind of difficult things and really exciting things that I've been through in my career, and kind of having questions about what was happening in my training. He was always the person that I could rely on. And he was always part of the email chains, you know, so he just always understood where I wasn't getting the information that I needed.
Yeah.
And I remember calling him after the 2017 season was over, because he'd been the person I checked in with, like saying, I think I should do this, like before World Championships. How do you feel? He's like, well, take off a set of that, blah, blah, blah. So he's just been my sounding board for the whole time. And when I called him after that season, I was like, just so you know, like, I'd like to talk about what my future options are, but I'm going to cry on this phone call. Like, I just did that. And he's just the best. So.
Yeah, I like him a lot too. So when did you realize, like, because there's a difference, right, between like competing kind of in college or for a university in an event. Was there a point when you realized like I could be pretty good at this thing, like on a national/international stage, or did you like go to college? I don't know if you were highly recruited or anything, or did you go to college like I'm going to be a pro?
I was never the best growing up. Like, I never won. I mean, I won Golden West one year, but it was like a down year. And I only threw like almost 160 as a high schooler, which is pretty good, but it's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
like,
for high school for sure.
yeah, but it's not the best that there's ever been or whatever. So I never won an NCAA championship. Like, I was fifth and second. And I just kind of always failed at the end of the year. And I would say that was true through my professional career until 2018. But yeah, I had a meet my sophomore year at Purdue. It was a home meet. It was like April 1st. So it was actively snowing and windy. And the day before, I'd had practices where I like hit myself in the back of the head with a javelin multiple times. And then the next day, it's snowing in terrible conditions, and I had a 4-meter PR through 56:19, which is like still the stadium record at Purdue. And I really want to go back and break it. It'd be really fun. But that was like the moment that that I said, that was a complete accident. Like, I had this practice the day before that was catastrophic, and then I had this giant PR. So what if I did that on purpose? Like, I went to college just thinking, well, this is a crazy adventure that I can't believe, like, I got a scholarship by throwing the javelin. I don't know what I want to study, but Purdue has good academics, so let's like go see what happens. To that day, like a shift saying, like, maybe I could do this for a long time.
Who was the throws coach then?
Rodney Zudowick. He spent
Rodney?
a long time at New Mexico. Rodney Zudowick. He's Australian, and he's one of those people that, like, you know, the coaches that you see them at a meet and you're so excited to like get reacquainted or whatever, but like they're coaching. So they're like, oh, hey, it's great to see you. And like back to business, back to dedicating all their time to their athletes. Like, that's exactly him. Like, the most calm motivator I've ever met. Like, he'd give you a stairs workout or a hill workout and you'd be like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe the volume of that. And then he would look at you and be like, what? You can do that. And you'd be like, oh, you're right. Like, I'm going to go do that. Like, he's so chill and personable. And like, once you understand like what his motivation is, like just the ultimate like family man, and he applies that to coaching in like a super professional, like very motivating way. He's just the best. So he's now at Notre Dame.
He's now at Notre Dame. Okay. Mm-hmm. Cool. So what's so you graduated, was Olympic trials, wasn't it? Your senior year was Olympic trials in
should have been. Oh wait, yep, should have been. But
okay.
I hurt my back real bad in 2007, so that's knock on wood, my only redshirt year, or my only missed season. So I graduated in 2009, actually.
Okay. But you made the team in 2008. Correct, yeah. I'm having flashback like scenes and memories, right?
Yeah.
So that's cool. Have you used over the years like sports psychology services or anything, either on an official basis, like USA Track and Field, like they have all their resources, but frankly, I never use them. But I am super friendly with all of them. Like we have conversations, but it's never been a session. So
Right.
like, where are you at kind of on that, sliding scale, I guess?
That's a good word for it, because I think as an athlete, you kind of maybe slide all over the scale throughout your whole career if you use those services. I had started to talk to the Purdue sports psychologist that 2007 year when I hurt my back. And that was the weight and hammer, by the way, but it was actually
Yeah,
like
I do remember
the
that.
weight.
Like that's
Yeah. Yeah. Ban the weight, right? Is that the hashtag?
ban the weight. I'm a fan of that, unless you can make a few grand on it at USA Indoors. Otherwise,
There you
yeah.
go. Yeah. Important considerations. But really it was overtraining for everything, right? Like I don't actually blame the weight and hammer. Because I was just trying to like overdo it on the javelin side, because I, in my mind, was like, but I'm a javelin thrower, so I'll do this even harder. So I had been talking to a sports psychologist that year, and then I got hurt, and I knew I wasn't going to compete that season, so I just kind of like threw all that out the window. And it was a good first introduction. I've talked to a bunch of different people like through the USOPC, because when we moved to Chula Vista, it was operated by the Olympic Committee rather than USATF. So there were sports psychologists on site there that were available to athletes. And it always felt like it was about all of life and not just sport. And I know that that's correct, but for me, it wasn't helpful at the time. So I would like move away from that. Yeah. I don't know.
Why do you think that is? Like, I'll just ask you without throwing my opinion in there.
I think like I was navigating my relationship on like my own terms, and I always knew from a really, from the very beginning that Russ and I were super different people, but like every psychologist wanted to talk about that a lot. And I was like, well, but it's okay that he's totally different than me. Like, I know that we have totally different motivations, and I don't know why that needs to be bad. So it was always just frustrating to me that I felt like they didn't understand Russ, and I was like defensive of Russ. But then I got into a thing where I would be afraid that I had said something that made them feel like he wasn't good. And so it was just like, it was this really terrible like spiral of my own consciousness. So I was like, I need to just have a good time, and that'll be better. And like through college, I would have like done really well early in the season, and then just not done well at the big meets. Except for USA's, like I always kind of pulled it together at USA's, but I knew exactly why. Like it was just that I tried to relax and have a good time and like let things happen. Like I got too serious at—
In your good performances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I already knew the key to good performances, and I just never felt like that was what we were talking about in sports psychology. But when I tore my ACL at Olympic trials in 2012 and decided to go to the Olympics anyway, I knew that I needed to talk to somebody. I was like, this is way too big. Like I'm terrified. Like, is this a dumb decision? Do I need to kind of, figure something else out? And at that time, Wendy Berlabi was the on-site psychologist at Chula Vista. And she was the first person that really like provided me with objective things to work on as I got better, or as I approached the Olympics, and then after surgery in my re-entry to sport. So she is the one that I worked with for the longest, and was just really awesome. Like felt like I had actual tasks to accomplish, and it was always like focused and applicable to sport. I liked her a lot.
Interesting. I'm still a little hung up on like the beginning. So I mean, like, were they psychologists and not necessarily sports psychologists, or
No, they were sports psychologists, which was why it was frustrating to me. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, interesting. I'm not, so like you don't need to lay down or anything. What did you find like? Okay, so you said objective. So like what? Were you given tasks essentially? Like how did that seem to work best for you?
We did, yeah, a little bit of like very specific goal setting, like with numbers and timelines and stuff like that. And that was on a really micro level. So I think at certain points. So I think like just the healing process from a surgery and the rehab process and how horrendous it can be, like just literal pain and getting like range of motion back in your knee. And yeah, just there are absolute points of reference like in the healing process. So it's really important to like have victories every day, and that was the task that I had pretty early. Just find something positive that happens like each day of rehab. So it was kind of like I did a lot of mental work in the process of that like most difficult physical work that I had to do in my career. So she was like exactly the right thing for me at that time. She also was pregnant with twins, like when I started working with her. So in London, like she was very pregnant and having like a really difficult like experience that is totally real world. So the parallels between like her difficulty in with like morning sickness and my rehab process, like once I'd had the surgery, and how I was having a lot of pain in like my little rehab things that I needed to do like right after surgery. Like she would tell me, yeah, I feel like vomiting all day, every day. So I call a friend and like if I can just talk through like that 10 minutes of like my worst pain or sickness, I'm better. And so like her experience with this very, you know, ubiquitous thing was really cool to apply to like my sport specific selfish like thing that I had going on. Like I loved being able to talk to her about something that was relatable, but so different from what I was doing. So that taught me a lot. After that, I was really scared, obviously, to throw the javelin again. And so it was even more important for me to just like enjoy what I was doing. And one of the most helpful things when I finally even competed again a year and a half after surgery, and I knew that I was healthy and I knew that I was strong, I still needed to like distract myself from the fear of hitting a block, since that's how I tore my ACL. So she was like, well, what makes you happy? And at the time, Russ and I were renovating our house. And I had all these pictures of like building something together and him being really happy or really funny like in the house. And so I printed off a bunch of like 4x6 pictures at her suggestion and just had them like with me in my backpack at every meet of like all of 2014. So like this is what's important and this is what makes me happy and kind of calms me down. And it was really helpful to be able to distract myself that way, but a physical thing.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. So, I think kind of while we're on that topic, like there are probably really a block leg and jab is probably one of, I don't, let's just arbitrarily say, you know, top five, like, um, biggest hurdle to come back from in track and field, probably, right? You know, in a sprinter's hamstring or, you know what I mean? So, um, if you could share a little bit more like about that, like how, um, did you kind of, is it, or is it still a work in progress? Like kind of your tools about doing that, right? Because there's a lot of Zach. I've got a kid that I coach now, Zachariah Blake, and he tore his
Right.
like in fall conditioning. We weren't even throwing, you know what I mean? And so it's
Which is maybe better.
yeah, on
Yeah.
yeah, and you're absolutely right. And so, and I know I don't, did I connect with? I think I got some
Yeah, a
exercises
little
from
bit.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so like it's just one of those things where I don't think I have, personally speaking, a story like that, but I've always been a little bit enamored by athletes who need to really conquer that to get back to, and also, you know what I mean, improve on where they were, right? Because like hell, javelin's already, you know, scary enough.
Yeah, it's definitely extremes in every appendage that you have. Um, so in 2007, when I hurt my back, I lost my mind. Like I drank a lot, I made bad decisions, I got the worst grades of my life.
College.
And then, yeah, college. Not how I would recommend doing it, but like I learned a
Okay.
lot through that process. And when I hurt my knee in 2012, all of a sudden I was looking at kind of the same situation. Like my athleticism just ripped from me. And 2007 was the first time that had happened. But 2012, I was like, okay, that's what happened when I turned 21. Let's make better decisions this time. So the fact that I could accomplish something else outside of sport during that recovery time was really nice. So I applied for a grad program through the Keller Graduate School of Management, like the MBA program that the USOPC has a partnership with.
Thank you,
So
SOPC.
yeah, like free education. It was amazing.
Mhm.
So I started classes that January 2013. I also did like a photo a day, like try and work on my photography skills. Like I have a really nice digital camera that I had never used. And that was really fun. And we moved to Colorado December 2012, like 9 weeks post-op. And then I bought our house at the end of 2013 because Russ proposed in September of 2013. So like that first year after knee injury and surgery, my first major surgery ever, and just like being completely blindsided by the absolute physical difficulty of a return from that kind of injury, I had all of a sudden all this like other richness of life going on that I hadn't had before. And it was so helpful for me going into the rest of my career to like pursue other things. Because I had missed that being in Chula Vista and like quote unquote just being an athlete for 3 years. But I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
realize that until I was like faced with not being an athlete anymore. So it was really a gift. Yeah. And then I wore my brace for 2 full years after surgery. 2015, I didn't open the season, but I threw 66.47, which is only 20 centimeters less than the American record, at a meet in May in Austin. And that was like, it was such a cool day because there were only like 8 women in the competition. It's like perfect conditions in Austin, but like I hadn't been practicing very well when I was there training for a couple weeks before. And I was just at that point like sick of being afraid of hitting a block. So like that day of competition, I was like, I'm just gonna do this. Like we'll see what happens. I
Yeah.
know, like yeah, I know objectively that I am strong. I just haven't been brave enough to like hold my legs straight yet. And it was really awesome. I had like 4 throws over 63, and that 66 was only my second throw. I actually think my first throw might have been further, but I've never like unintentionally foot fouled a throw before. Like my acceleration was just such that it happened that way. Like I was a little bit too close to the line.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then unfortunately, like my knee was sore for 2 weeks after that competition, and that really freaked me out. And I'd like kind of had to build my confidence up later. But my technique during that like healing time and then getting back into competition was just reliant on like holding a strong block leg. Like I didn't really understand how to get into that position or what was like causing kind of the accumulation of forces like through my body before the actual moment of the block. So Dana Lyon has been enormous for my confidence in hitting a block, because as of 2018, when she finally started teaching me like how she maximized her 5'2" frame to throw almost 200 feet, I can use both of my legs to feel like I'm hitting a solid block. And I understand like how I'm moving into that position. So it's just so much more repeatable and less scary to just be falling onto a leg that's already broken from hitting a block. So I
That's
have
awesome.
more tools. Yeah.
Is that more of a this is more personally because I want to know, but like is that um so Dana teaching it that way, where does that come from? Is that something that's more one philosophy versus, say American one, or what? Or is that her observation only? Where does that come from?
I think it's a lot more universal than the way that I used to throw the javelin. Like a lot of Europeans talk about your hips more and use their hips more than Americans. And I just
Right.
never had. Like I was always like leaving my right hip behind the throw. And I knew that that was my worst habit, but I didn't necessarily know what my right foot action should be or my right knee action should be to accomplish that goal. Yeah, so it's a dandelion thing, but it's also just a universal like thing that I felt like I missed out on for 10 years of throwing the
Yeah.
javelin.
Yeah.
Yeah, which makes you feel kind of dumb, but here we are.
I mean,
Now we
but
know.
it's like, knowledge is power, and you know what you know. So like, say, I mean, hammer, man. Like, I don't think I knew anything about hammer until I was like well into my 20s.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I get that. That's awesome. I'm glad like Dana and you guys kind of connected, because I would say like kind of as soon as that happened, I like to like kind of predict what I think's going to happen. I don't usually tell a lot of people, but like when you guys like hooked up, I was like, yeah, like, like 70 meters, not to
Woo!
scare you or anything, but
Yeah.
what do you
No,
see as like your like what do you think your top end is? Or I should even say top end, but like what do you want to throw? That's a better question.
I just want a PR. But that's
Okay.
not like that's not the end all be all. Yeah, I mean 70 meters would be amazing. I have the frame for it. I'm tall. I have long arms. I don't think whenever like I don't know if you experience this, like if you watch a video of other people or someone that you really look up to. And then you have this feeling that like, oh, I look like that too. Like I feel it in my bones that like that's how I'm connected to the implement, or like that's how I want to feel. And like you go into a practice like really motivated or whatever.
With what athlete
If
though?
I ever like
Or just in general?
just in general, like I used to when I was like playing basketball in high school, I'd watch like the boys games before the women's games, and be like, I'm so pumped up and amazing and I'm so excited to like play this game. And then you watch like women's basketball or like the girls games that my parents would record, and we're just so like all limbs and bumbly and exciting. That's exactly how I feel when I throw the javelin. Like I feel really awesome and I love like a good throw and all that stuff, but then I watch it back and I'm like, but there's so much room for improvement. Like what is happening here? And until I see a throw, especially at a big competition, because the main culprit of that feeling is like world championships last year, like highlight film at the annual meeting. I was like, oh, dang it, like I missed so much on that throw.
Yeah.
And I knew that at the time, but you see it back and you're like, oh, but I can be better. I'm excited to do that. So I don't know about numbers, but I just always see little spaces for more distance in my throw. And
Yeah.
it.
See, and I think that's kind of a special talent, if you will, for self-improvement. I won't even like, I don't think it's relevant to say like people who throw far or Olympians or world record holders. So I think anyone can do it, but there is a special thing where people essentially, I don't know, constructive criticism like of themselves. And so like you telling that story and looking at your own throw and being like, yeah, but like this is what I would like to see, or I can do so much more, or like there's a lot more there. And I think when you hear people and like, the Jordan thing that's been going on, man, like, and he's it's if Michael Jordan was like, nah, I'm awesome, man, just pay me good. Right. Like it's a totally different story. And like, and yeah, he probably still would have been, good for a little bit. Right. But like that drive, and not only does it help himself, but it also impacts and influences the people around him. Mm-hmm. I think that's a big similarity between people who can kind of get things done. Cause I know people who are just like, no, I'm good. Oh, well.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can stay good like over there.
Right. And I said something, I can't remember what it was, but we had a practice in 2019 where we did like 2 days in a row, because at Worlds in 2019, it was the first time that the women's javelin has ever been qualifying one day, finals the next day. So I was like, at the time I'm 33, like I need to practice that. And some of Dana's cadets had like come out to watch practice. and I had a throw that was fine, but it was like just my strengths. Like it was only things that I've always done well. And this cadet was like, "Oh, that was amazing though. Like, I can't believe you didn't like that throw." And I was like, relying on your strengths is how you stay good. Like, I want to be great. So I need to focus on the weaknesses. And I forget exactly how I phrased it, but it was something to that effect. And that's the benefit of Dana Lyon. Like, I met Dana for the first time in 2005 at a meet at Cal Berkeley. She PR'd that day. She threw like 56 mid something, and I had a massive PR my freshman year and threw 52. So I was real pumped to get second to Dana. And yeah, so I've known her for 15 years. And the fact that we have been good friends and like seen each other kind of through a lot of different things means that in practice, like she can say, you know, I love you, but I don't love this today. Like I'm not happy with the, you know, the technique. And I think that I had a coach before that was like just positive and that was it, which I appreciated. I think especially in like the beginning of that relationship, but I just needed something that was going to challenge me more. Like I'm good at working hard, but I need to know what I need to work hard on. And that's where Dana Lyon is just absolutely key. Cause she's the same way. Like she'll look at a film that I've done two things right, but I was trying to do a third one better. And she can see that and call me out on it. So it's awesome.
Yeah, that's good. Bit of accountability, huh?
Mm-hmm.
So, what's a sport lesson that you've carried with you into life and wife and dog mom and friend and everything else?
I think that everybody's different in how they approach stuff. Like, just because, like, if I share something with Ari about technique, like our bodies are different, so we're not going to do the same thing the same way. And like Russ was so different in the way that he approached his training. And that's like true of kind of everything we accomplished like in our house. So when you talk about the wife role, like it's really easy for me to see that like just because I think you should be doing something one way doesn't mean that that's the way that you're going to do it. And that's not wrong. So it's really neat to like have relationships with people literally all over the world that approach things differently and are super successful, because like even though everyone's doing everything like a totally different way. And maybe not totally different, but like just slightly tweaked from your experience. Yeah, like I love going to, I get to train in Prague sometimes, like where Barbara Špatáková trains.
Yeah.
She's my actual friend and I still can't believe that.
I love Prague.
Yes, and it's this gorgeous city that's so much fun, but like the training facility, it's really interesting because I stay in this dorm with no air conditioning or Wi-Fi that's like really cheap to stay in and it's great and like walking distance to the stadium, but I don't really have access to like the schedule of the weight room or whether there's going to be a soccer team on the field like training. And I can communicate like with her on that a little bit, but like I'm also trying to not be in the way because I'm so grateful to be here.
Yeah, right.
So like Dana and I were there in 2018 and I didn't even know there like was a basement weight room, but the main weight room like wasn't open. I needed to lift, but we like could hear some people downstairs. So we just like walked in this weight room and I just like started lifting because I don't speak Czech. I don't know how to communicate with you, but like I need to get this done and now's my opportunity. So no warm up at all. Like let's just do the work. And there's just so much more like relaxation around what you're supposed to be doing, quote unquote, like as an athlete in Europe, I feel. And watching those people be like objectively more successful than you with this like relaxation towards training is just it's a really cool thing to witness. Like the mental fortitude, I think, is a huge part of that going into competition. But at the same time, like just seeing everybody's different processes makes me really happy. Helps me understand.
Yeah, totally. Like I can add on to that too. Like I absolutely agree. Because again, like in an event like Hammer, like it is mostly European dominant, Eastern European dominant, and you're right. I just think there's, I don't want to say there's more grit, but like kind of, right? Like those experiences in terms of growing up are different than, you know, a kid from wherever. You can say a kid for me because, like, you know, I'm middle class or whatever the heck I grew up in. And it does kind of infer how an athlete can kind of grow and like and essentially emerge. Um, and I also think you're right too. Like they are kind of there's a better balance overall, generally speaking. There's a better balance of life and fun and social and also training. So like being able to kind of shut off and enjoy your family, or shut off and go to work, or and you know what I mean, and shut off and get the training and get that work in. You know what I mean? Like it seems like there isn't much that bleeds into the other. And you know, now that I'm saying that out loud, like that was stuff bled all over the place for me early in my career.
Yeah.
And you know, and while I still had my own goals and I was very like determined, but like if that stuff keeps, you know, crossing friggin' lines, like it's going to be more difficult. Not that it's not possible, it's just more difficult.
Yeah. I also think that like I have a certain degree of social anxiety, right? And I used to just like talk more to cover that up, like just be kind of overbearing in whatever conversations, and whether that was because I was uncomfortable being in like a different country, or I didn't speak a language, so I needed to like, I don't know, somehow subconsciously fulfill a loud American stereotype or whatever. Like it was just terrible. But at some point in maybe the aging process, or maybe like being in uncomfortable situations enough, I just started listening more and like letting people um, be the leaders, you know, in their own spaces, which should have been natural, but it's super fun to like bring that home and be kind of calmer and just listen more and like let experiences sort of come to you rather than making them what you think they should be. And that's been really helpful for me personally.
Yeah, that's cool. So would you still consider yourself I don't know, socially awkward, or however you worded it?
Well, yeah, yeah, probably, yeah.
All right, so let's go young javelin throwers. I think there's a couple because I tried to recruit one of them. There's a couple really solid girls coming up, and honestly, even freshmen too. So like, let's not even categorize them at all. But what's a couple of things, like some advice that you would give to A, female javelin throwers, and B, just javelin in general?
Hmm. People ask me this and I should have an answer, but I don't know that I do. Um, Javelin throwers in general, get your flexibility from your thoracic spine, not your lumbar spine. That's a really big one. Rehab is life. Like I think I'm unique in my kind of approach to, like, my warm-ups are a lot of like different PT exercises that I've learned through injury. But I know for sure that that's a reason that I'm still around. Yeah, I've had ACL surgery, but also left shoulder reconstruction or repair, labrum and rotator cuff, and like all of that knowledge then applies to my actual throwing shoulder, which is super helpful in staying healthy. I think like just get whatever experiences you can. There's a lot of like, from what I've noticed, fear about travel and like making experience happen on an international level. And like, that's the only way that you can grow if you
Yeah.
want to be at the top level. Like, that's absolutely the only way. It took me way too long to learn how to be comfortable in those situations. But it's just the most important thing, in my opinion.
It's invaluable. um, but unfortunately, like if from a financial perspective, it's not that easy.
Right.
There are, but there are ways to get around that, and within USA Track and Field, like the foundation, and there's grants, and there are means of being able to do those kinds of things. And every year, those grants go on, as they tell us every year at the annual meeting. those grants go largely unused.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which is kind of funny to say now because they might end up in other people's pockets. Um,
Ooh.
I should bleep that one out.
Maybe
And
not. Maybe not. Apply the
yeah,
pressure.
seriously,
Yeah.
yeah, apply the pressure. Um, but so, like, thinking of me personally, I enjoy travel. I don't, but I find myself um, not socially awkward, but like in terms of like, but I'm not like I don't know, I'm not super social. I'm social, so like just going to a place that let's use Prague. You mentioned Prague. Me being in Prague, I would kind of go out and venture a little bit, but I wouldn't like go to a party or something, or like go to some place that has like a bunch of people that I don't know. Like that's the kind of thing that I wouldn't typically do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Not to mention the minor anxiety of traveling in a country where you don't understand the language and that kind of thing. Um, but ultimately, you just got to do it. So
Right. You just have to
that
try
part
it
ended up
and figure it
just
out.
doing it. But like,
Yeah.
I mean, I
Well, and I
always
don't
remember
know. Go ahead.
um, Steve Mans, uh, in my wedding, former shot putter, he coach. Where is he coach at? Miami, Ohio, I think. And my man, for like the last like I don't know, maybe 4 years of his career, he would buy a one-way ticket and just go to Europe. And I'm like, bro, you're crazy. Like, I would never do that. Like, I couldn't. Like, and he was like, it's totally chill. Like, I got a friend here. I got a friend here. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and his PR was, I don't remember, 2050, let's say, right? And so like he could bounce around at kind of the mid-level meets and make a few €100 here and there, and like
Right.
and be fine and have a great summer, and then find his way home again. And like I told him, I was like, dude, man, that's so awesome. I could never do it, but like
Well, and at the time, like, how do you even buy that ticket home? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
is there internet? Like, do you have to go to the airport to buy the one-way ticket? Is it the same day? Like, what is happening? It's so
I'm
confusing.
old enough to remember making collect calls, being in Europe and like not
Yeah.
having like my taxi or whoever was supposed to pick me up not picking me up, and it's like, well, I got to figure this out. Otherwise, I'm going to be stuck in, I don't even know where I was in that story, but like,
Right.
yeah.
The first time I ever traveled to Europe like by myself was 2009 to the London Diamond League, or I think it was still the Golden League at that point. 2010 was the first year of the Diamond League, but I had like a global phone that was a flip phone, like it was like a only to travel to Europe with. And I got to London Heathrow. I'm in the wrong terminal, but I like don't know that because I hadn't gotten the right information from my agent. So there's no one there
Yeah.
to pick me up. I don't know what I'm doing. I had to like pay $30 for internet like in London Heathrow, like on my laptop that wasn't charged because I used it on the plane. So I had like 3-4 minutes of like internet access to like get an email and hopefully get something back. But it's like the middle of the night at home. My luggage got lost, and like my flip phone wasn't working because like my mom had like changed her service or something, and I was on the same plan as them. So something about my global service like changed, and it didn't work the whole time I was there. But like the hotel wouldn't let me call the airport like from their desk phone. They like needed me to use a pay phone, but I didn't even have like an ATM card that would work.
Oh
So
man.
I was just like sitting there waiting for my luggage, like totally unaware of like what was going on. And it was just the worst experience. But now it is so much easier to like get stuff done, like Airbnb, uh, global service all the time, like super fast internet wherever you are. Like it's just crazy because we did spend like 2 months at a time in Europe in 2010 and 2011. And just like rent an apartment in Cologne, Germany, and then travel to meet from there.
Yeah.
But I remember I got there first, and I was supposed to find an apartment for Russ and I in 2010. So I stayed in Brianna Glenn's apartment in Cologne. It
Oh
was like
yeah,
on the
yeah.
third story of this building, and I had to like find a place to live after like staying there for free on the floor for a couple of days. But the first night, I'm like all jet lagged. I love when she tells this story, and I'm sleeping on the floor on like the thinnest mat you could ever like imagine without a pillow, blah, blah, blah. Like I still need to buy all of that stuff like for the summer. And it was really hot that summer, but I got cold in the middle of the night and I just pulled something like towards me. And I woke up in the morning and it was a fitted sheet. So I'm just like covered, cocooned in this fitted sheet on the floor of my friend's apartment, and then had to find a place to live without global service. It's crazy.
It's a completely
So easy
different
now.
world between
Yeah.
like traveling in Europe than, and honestly, it hasn't really been that long, but maybe, I don't know, 10 years maybe.
Mm-hmm.
That's about right. Anyway, we could have an entire like series of podcasts like of people telling their European
Right.
travel stories. Someone
Yeah.
should put that together, not me. I'm not that funny, but I've had some good ones. Um, yeah, that would be really funny.
Russ stayed
Um,
in the garage apartment of like a meat director in like Poland one time for weeks. Like, and it was like Polish vacation time. So he like, there were no stores open or anything. He was like eating beef jerky in a garage alone in
yeah,
the middle of nowhere. Mm-hmm.
that would be what city? That would be amazing.
It might not have been Poland. I can't remember, but middle of nowhere. Yeah. Super funny.
uh, Russ story before we'll wrap up here pretty quick. If I remember, I think you said you've recently gone out with him for the first time. Like, was that in the back country? Was that a fishing trip? What did you do with him recently?
We haven't done a whole lot recently. Our last backpack together was the Continental Divide Trail in Rocky Mountain National Park. So there's like 30 miles of Continental Divide National Scenic Trail that goes through the park. And that was, I think, fall 2017. Yeah, it was awesome. He's a guide. He's a fly fishing guide in Wyoming. So I went up there last summer, like for a couple days, recovering from jet lag,
Yeah.
and got rode around in the boat with him.
So that's
He's
a
up there
seasonal
now.
thing, yeah.
Mm-hmm. They do winter fishing trips though in Idaho as well. So it's seasonal, but kind of all seasons at the same time.
Yeah.
And there's some winter fishing in Wyoming also, but like last year, one of the times they were up there, they all got stuck like at that house because of snow for like an extra week, which they're fine with, but that's just the reality of Wyoming in March kind of thing. Yeah. He's amazing. He built us a bench, like for quarantine time, like he designed it, welded it, upholstered the pad on the top of it. It's like adjustable. Like it's the coolest weightlifting bench I've ever seen. I love it so much. Yeah.
Make a little business out of that. So looking back on your career, so fast forward, you're kind of, I don't know, you're like 207 years old at this point. What would you like to be remembered for? Like, what are you going to say before you leave this plane of existence?
Well, I've thought a lot. Like 2019 was really interesting as far as like feeling alone. Like I've mentioned that I love, the internal motivation of javelin and all that stuff, but I also like sharing it with people that I really enjoy. So I had like struggled in Europe by myself last year, and I like didn't make the Diamond League final, and was super frustrated. But kind of getting back in touch like with being home with Russ and being with Dana, and then going to team meets with teammates that I really like, was really great. And it just all of a sudden made me realize that like this is really cool to be 34 now, but still connect to like the recent college graduates. Like that really surprised me that was so easy. And I think because I was alone most of the year, that made it really natural to be like, hey, people, like I would like to hang out with you. And it doesn't really matter like what your life experience is. It's just that I've been lonely and I'm excited about this team experience. So that's what I want. Like that's what I would like to have people remember is like I'm accessible. I'm a relaxed person, like in a high pressure situation, I think, now that I've finally figured out how to do that. And that means like I'm down for game night at team competitions, and I'm happy to, spend time with you at the warm-up track if you're feeling nervous and you need somebody to just joke around with. Like that's always what I want to do for people, because it's about like their relationships more than the outcome of sport, even internationally across country lines.
Brilliant. Yeah. That's really good. I like that. And do you have any other final thoughts? Where can people find you social media wise? Do you have any services or products or blah, blah, blah?
I sell my warm-ups on my website, karawinger.com.
Ooh, website.
Yeah, they're very cheap. I thought about raising my prices, but in this time it didn't feel right, so they're like $3 each. Like they're not expensive. It's really fun to get emails like with some income in them, but I really believe in them too. Like I post a lot of my warm-up stuff on my Instagram story, and my Instagram is Kara Throws Jav. That's the same for Twitter, and then my Facebook page is Kara Throws Javelin. I have a TikTok, but I'm 34, so I don't
That's
know.
what I'm saying too. I
Yeah.
haven't, the wife got it and I was like, I mean, I'll try, I guess, but
Yeah.
that was like weeks ago and we haven't even used it.
Right. Like I just think it's really entertaining. Like people are like kind of
People are funny.
Yes, it's amazing.
It's different.
But am I? Yeah. I've tried to like use social media as more of what it is, like social media, like just a method of communication, than feeling like it's this super high pressure thing. So I'm attempting to be better about like posting more stuff and not like overthinking it, because it's been fun to feel like I have the time to do that in quarantine as well. But yeah, that's I write a blog sometimes on my website. I was really good about it last year, but I haven't been this year because, like I said, I overthink it and I try to make it too polished, and I need to just like put stuff out there. So maybe I'll try again.
Yeah. I do the same thing, and that's the advice that I either hear or read about too. Like, don't overthink it, just put it out there and make sure it's easy. Like I went through, I think an entire year or so where I like didn't post at all except for like birthdays and anniversaries. You know what I mean? I just wasn't interested. I just didn't really care about it and like whatever else. But I also had a different perspective or motivation, I guess, where like I was paralyzed by feeling like I had to.
Yeah.
And it turned into, well, no, I'm just sharing because these are all things that I really, really enjoy and like and love. And if you enjoy them as well, then great. And you know what I mean? And let me know or whatever. But like beyond that, I'm doing it because I want to.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
this is my Instagram.
Yeah, exactly. And it like totally changed everything. And then stuff just kind of spills out. And then it's like, I feel like people are just like, oh, shut up. But I'm also to a point now where I'm just like, yeah, no, I'm gonna keep doing what I want to do.
Right.
So
for sure.
it only took, however long to be able to find that spot.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so Miss Karat, thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Sir Kibble.
Yeah. And first javelin thrower. I think I'm gonna go into like other events here soon.
Oh wow. Yeah.
We'll see.
Non-throwing events.
Yeah.
Outrageous.
I mean, it kind of needs to be like I want like sports psychologists and other kind of people in that vein as well. But like just other athletes, I think everyone has something different to kind of add, but also fairly similar is what I'm hoping people kind of get from it.
Do you want to know my favorite track events?
Yes.
Okay. 400 hurdles.
400 hurdles.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. Why?
Yeah.
Because it's freaking hard. So hard. Unbelievable.
Did you do in high school or 300?
I ran the 300 hurdles one time in Washington in high school. Yeah. And my friend's mom, who ran the 400 hurdles in college. Like before I did that race, she was like, Kara, it's going to suck. Like you will hate it. And I was like, whatever, I got this. Like I'm tall, I can just step over these little hurdles. And all I remember as I like barely crawled across the finish line was her laughing at me from the stands.
Wow.
She was so right. It was awful, awful. I'm amazed by them. I think it's a phenomenal event.
Yeah. 400 hurdles is pretty wicked. I think 800 is wicked.
Yeah, that's my second favorite.
And
800 meters.
triple jump. Like the Radisha's world record is like, I mean, I don't know. It's up there. Like, do you remember the breakdown like per 100 meters? Like I
For
think his
David
break,
Rudisha?
yeah,
I saw it.
that's what I mean. It was just like,
I saw it in person. Like I saw the race in
yeah,
Berlin in 2010. Yeah, or whenever it was, I saw it. I was there. It was amazing. No, I don't remember. My jaw was on the floor and that was it.
yeah,
Awesome. So cool.
yeah. I think that's
Track.
what
I've heard you say that you're a track fan. I feel the same way. I love track. Cool.
yeah. Oh, 400. I ran a 400 one ever in 8th grade, part of a sprint medley, and I was basically made to run it, and that was the last time I ran it.
I used to volunteer for like the anchor leg of the 4x4 in high school because we weren't good. So like they just needed somebody to like
They needed another body.
yeah, like to be alone on the track like at the very last event. Like and I was like, sure, I'll jog a 400, but I would always go out super fast. And so by the 200, you can like taste the iron in your throat and stuff.
Oh yeah, and
And
the
you're
leaf
all
just
alone.
start flailing everywhere.
Yeah.
Like that was me, man. And, oh my goodness.
Horrible.
All right. Well, thanks for catching up. I'm sure I'll see you at some point if the season ever happens. And thank you.
Thank you. I had
Appreciate
fun.
it.
Yeah.
All right. Take care, Kara.
Bye. Thanks.